The aircraft was still cruising at 35,000 feet when warning lights lit up inside the cockpit and alarms began to sound. Moments earlier, the captain had allowed his child to sit in the pilot's seat, believing the aircraft was safely flying on autopilot. Unaware of what he was doing, the child applied pressure to the controls, quietly disengaging part of the system. The plane began to lean and descend. When the captain noticed, he rushed forward and pulled the controls back from his child, trying to correct the mistake. It was already too late. The aircraft slammed into a remote Siberian mountainside at extreme speed, killing all 75 people on board. There was no mechanical failure, no bad weather, no external threat. The crash was caused by a moment of negligence in the cockpit, where discipline failed, procedures were ignored, and a child was given control of an aircraft carrying dozens of lives. Aeroflot Flight 593 departed Moscow in March 1994, bound for Hong Kong, with a full cabin and an experienced flight crew. The captain, Yaroslav Kudrynsky, had logged thousands of flight hours and was considered reliable. As the aircraft reached cruising altitude over Siberia, the cockpit environment relaxed, procedures loosened, rules blurred. The Airbus A310 was flying on autopilot, and the captain made a decision that would later be studied as one of aviation's most unforgivable lapses in judgment. He invited his children into the cockpit, believing there was no real danger at cruising altitude. At the time, many pilots misunderstood how Airbus autopilot systems truly worked. Unlike older aircraft, the A310 allowed partial manual input without fully disengaging autopilot, and it did not clearly alert the crew when that balance was disturbed. When the captain's son applied pressure to the control column, the autopilot quietly disconnected on one axis while remaining active on others. It simply handed control to someone who had no idea he was now flying a commercial jet at high altitude. For several minutes, the son unknowingly forced the aircraft into a slow bank. The autopilot compensated until it couldn't. When the aircraft exceeded its limits, the system fully disengaged and the jet rolled sharply. Only then did the pilots realize something was wrong. The captain rushed back to his seat, but confusion took over. The aircraft entered a steep descent, accelerating beyond safe limits, while the crew struggled to understand why the plane wasn't responding the way it should. Training failed to bridge the gap between expectation and reality. Investigators later made one thing brutally clear: the autopilot did not fail. The aircraft did exactly what it was designed to do. This crash was not caused by technology turning against humans, it was caused by humans misunderstanding technology. The pilots attempted incorrect recovery maneuvers, pulling the nose up too aggressively, which led to a stall. At that altitude and speed, there was no margin left. The plane pitched violently, rolled again, and entered a final uncontrollable dive.
The aircraft struck the ground in a remote Siberian forest, killing all 75 people on board instantly. There were no survivors, no distress call, no heroic final moments, just a silent impact at extreme speed. The investigation focused not only on the actions of the pilots, but on cockpit culture, authority gradients. The fallout reshaped aviation policy worldwide. Cockpit access rules were tightened. Training on automated systems was overhauled. Pilots were taught not just how to use automation, but how to recognize when it subtly disengages. Aeroflot rewrote procedures and manufacturers redesigned warning systems to make partial autopilot failures impossible to miss. These changes came at a cost paid in lives, not theory. Flight 593 is remembered not because of mechanical failure or weather, but because it exposed a hard truth: the most advanced aircraft in the world is only as safe as the discipline of the people flying it. One small decision, made casually, without malice, destroyed an aircraft, ended dozens of lives, and permanently changed how modern aviation thinks about human error. The tragedy wasn't that a child touched the controls, it was that no one stopped it.